talking some college football, and more specifically, I'm going to be talking about the Oregon Ducks and how currently I think they're one of my favorites to win the national championship. Now, coming off a pretty solid year for the Ducks last year, especially with having such talent coming from quarterback Bo Nix, being in that Heisman conversation last year, going out with a bang, the Pac-12. I mean, they didn't win the Pac-12; they lost to Washington, but they had a solid roster. A lot of guys go to the NFL after the year, but they got themselves a reloaded roster, and going to be a very fun and interesting year, especially for transfer quarterback from Oklahoma, Dylan Gabriel. Now, here going on in the background right now is some of the highlights mic'd up from their spring game, and them from obviously moving from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten is going to be interesting to watch this year, having competitors such as Penn State and Ohio State to compete with. So to start off, we're going to go ahead and look at Oregon's schedule here. So their first game, August 31st, they're playing Idaho. Obviously, I think they're going to beat Idaho. Next week, Boise State. I would hope they'd beat Boise State. Then they go ahead and continue the out-of-conference streak and play Oregon State, still in the Pac-12. And then here we got some Big Ten action going on. They're playing UCLA and Michigan State. So I think they obviously, I think it's obvious, are going to go 5-0 here before they play Ohio State. Now, Ohio State is going to be a real tough opponent. Do I think they win? I think they can win. I think it's really just going to depend on what Oregon shows in these first 5 games. And I think the toughest opponent they're going to have to face is probably going to be Michigan State, Oregon State. And kind of see what they go from there. So Ohio State could be a loss. But when we go on to the rest of their schedule, they play Purdue, Oregon, or sorry, not Oregon. They play Illinois, Purdue, Michigan, Maryland, Wisconsin, and Washington. Now, to me, with this Oregon roster, I could only see them losing to Ohio State, and that's the only team I would pick for them to lose is against Ohio State. I think they win pretty comfortably against Purdue, Illinois, Maryland, and Washington. I think they have those. Wisconsin should be. You never know with Wisconsin. Michigan could be a little bit of a tough matchup, but I think they should win that. So overall, I think they're losing one game, and it's to Ohio State. Right? So obviously, with the new 12-team format in college football, they're going to be in that playoff spot. Now, do I think they're going to be in the Big Ten championship game? I don't know, because I'd have to see Ohio State's record, my prediction for them, which will probably be in a later video. But if Ohio State only loses one game, like I predict Oregon to, I think they're in the same division within the Big Ten, so that means they'd be the representative. And then maybe Iowa versus Ohio State, maybe Iowa versus Oregon if Ohio State loses 2 games. But overall, I'd say I'm predicting only a 1-loss season for the Oregon Ducks here. Now, when it comes to the Oregon Ducks, so when it comes to the top 100 college football players rankings for 2024, since it's some of the same players, some of new teams for people who didn't pay attention to too much of the transfer portal, their quarterback is ranked here in the top 100, ranked 20 here. It's Dylan Gabriel, transfer from Oklahoma, may be familiar. And like it says, a lot of sportsbook have him as an early favorite to win the Heisman, and I do think this fit with Dan Lanning will be good for Dylan Gabriel, and I think it ultimately probably was a smart decision to transfer from Oklahoma, after he transferred before, but I think this is going to be the right fit for him. So CBS Sports kind of agrees with kind of what I'm saying. Big pickup, agreed. And then we go down, another transfer here is wide receiver Evan Stewart from Texas A&M, 22, so only 2 rankings below. The hope is to replace Troy Franklin, like this article states. He was a pretty good athlete at Texas A&M, so to pair him with Dylan Gabriel should be pretty interesting, along with we'll go down here with Tez Johnson. We skipped those two as you probably saw, but Tez Johnson here returning, and he is the only Duck on this top 100 list that's not a transfer. 67. But he had a pretty good season last year, so hopefully he can build up with that with a reloaded offense. So let's go back up here. We have another Jamari Caldwell transfer from Houston, DT. I think this is a huge position for Oregon to refill on with their defensive line. And yeah, maybe one of the most important additions, so they agree with me. But I think he is going to be a pretty solid piece for Oregon, hopefully, as long as he stays healthy. I think that's a big pickup coming out of Houston. And then the last one is Jabbar Muhammad, who was just a dog last year, literally, for Washington. And he transferred to the opposition, is what it was, to Oregon. And although people may have called him a snake, it probably was a smart decision considering Washington. They lost their head coach to Alabama, and they lost a lot of their coaching staff, along with a lot of their players wanting to transfer. Obviously, Michael Penix getting drafted, Rome Odunze getting drafted. So overall, I think it's a good fit, good lockdown corner that the Ducks are gaining in Jabbar Muhammad. And then when it comes to Oregon's college football recruiting class for 2024, they had 28 commits. In the top 300, they had 17. Then other commits, not sure what this means. Maybe this is like a preferred walk-on. 0 5-stars, but they had 7 3-stars, 4 4-stars, and they had 21 of those. So 7 3-stars, 21 4-stars. And to top the list here with the 4-stars, it looks like they got a defensive end, 6'6", defensive tackle, reloaded that defensive line like I was mentioning, some corners, some safeties, some linebackers, some really defensive loaded and wide out loaded when it comes to Oregon, which doesn't make sense considering they did lose, or rather, they could improve on those positions. So overall, pretty solid 2024 commits. I think 2025 will be even better for Oregon as, that will be getting started soon, if not already. And when it comes to the Big Ten, here's what it looks like with the new reloaded Big Ten. The additions obviously coming from Oregon Ducks, UCLA Bruins, USC Trojans, and the Washington Huskies. Now, when it comes to winning the league, I think it's either Ohio State or Oregon. I don't think Penn State wins this year, although they have a good team. I think Oregon is better. That's just my personal opinion. I think they got a better roster and a better quarterback. I do think Dylan Gabriel is better than Drew Aller, to be honest. And let's search up Drew Aller here. So, Drew Aller, he's still 20, so that is something to mention. And I'm not saying that, Penn State's time is running out soon or anything, but Dylan Gabriel is the more veteran quarterback. Now, let's go real quick to the top 25 college football preseason polls, what they got going on right now. So this is really recent article here. Let's just collapse this. But here we have Oregon 3 here, Ohio State just above them, which is kind of what I predicted. Penn State 8. Something to mention. Anything more from Big Ten play here? Okay, USC 20. And that's it. Okay, so Big Ten and SEC have 12 of the top 13 teams. Notre Dame's up there. So, yeah. Oregon, I think, sleeper to win the college football playoff. I think so. If they can get past, I think really, like I said, only competition even in these polls to compete with them, as long as they don't get upset or anything, drastic upsets. It is Ohio State, and Georgia? I think Ohio State is slightly above Georgia this year. If Georgia, because it's 12-team format, if they get upset and Oregon just keeps rolling, I think Oregon will be that team to beat this year. So overall, if you guys want to see some more college football preseason polls or anything about teams that I think could overachieve this year, or who I think is going to be the top teams, make sure to leave a like and subscribe.